Ms Lynch.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman, for the opportunity to contribute towards your committee's work. I will base my input on the customs requirements and regulations which will impact on Ireland should the UK leave the Customs Union in 2019. These comments are based on provisions set out by the Union Customs Code and delegated and implementing regulations. The original Customs Code established the integration of customs procedures across the Member States of the European Union following the implementation of the single market. The new Union Customs Code continues to solidify that in that it lays out common risk criteria and standards which must be followed in order to facilitate legitimate trade and fight against fraud. Paragraph 19 of the UCC establishes this quite clearly when it states that use of information and communication technologies should be accompanied by harmonised and standardised application of customs control by the Member States to ensure an equivalent level of customs control throughout the Union, so as not to give rise to anti-competitive behaviour at the various Union entry and exit points. Thus, the customs control of imports into and out of the EU is delegated to the customs authorities to ensure all controls at all borders are applied equally. The UCC reinforces this by stating the completion of the internal market, the reduction of barriers to international trade and investment, and the reinforced need to ensure security and safety at the external borders of the Union have transformed the role of customs authorities, giving them a leading role within the supply chain and, in their monitoring and management of international trade, making them a catalyst to the competitiveness of countries and companies. The reason I reference this is that the Customs Code legislation is directly applicable in Ireland, as in all other Member States, and therefore the leeway for customs in implementing alternative rules to those set out by the UCC is limited. The Customs Code requires, firstly, the implementation of the customs tariff. This means that all goods being imported into or exported out of the EU are subject to the same duty rate and controls on import and export, and the identical application of customs trade legislation as set out by the UCC. This means, therefore, that when goods clear customs in any Member State, they are able to move freely within the EU and are not subject to customs controls in other Member States. Once the UK leaves the EU Customs Union, they will, for customs purposes, be a non-EU or third country. As a non-EU country operating outside the customs tariff and the Union Customs Code, it is therefore difficult to see how, at this point, the UK would not be subject to the same import and export controls as any other non-EU country. This was reiterated last week by Michel Barnier when he stated that because we are part of the EU, businesses can trade goods without customs duties and documentation requirements are very simple. But this is also what a Member State enjoys and what it loses when it leaves the Union. Customs controls require the following. Firstly, an import declaration must be lodged with customs for all imports into the EU and an export declaration for all exports out of the EU. This declaration requires 54 boxes of information from details of the consignor to the consignee, the product details and tariff details, values, country of origin information, weights and packaging information and terms of trade. In terms of lodging customs declarations, there are two options. Firstly, a company can employ a clearance agent to act as their representative, or, secondly, they can request authorisation to lodge these declarations themselves. Most goods are cleared for import and export instantly, but about 8% will be subject to checks by customs, and this is required by harmonised risk management rules. Importers and exporters can be subject to post-clearance audit checks by customs any time within the following 3 years. When goods are imported, however, duty and import VAT is payable on arrival unless a deferred payment authorisation is agreed with customs, and this would allow payment of duty and import VAT to be deferred to the 15th of the month following entry. This facility is, however, subject to the provision of a bank guarantee. All of the above apply, for example, to trade with any non-EU country, such as, for example, the US. The implications of this for Irish industry is significant. Firstly, there will be a requirement to lodge customs declarations on all imports from and exports to the UK. It is to be assumed that the same requirement will be implemented in the UK. There is a necessary cost for this, either in the payment of a clearance agent or in the recruitment of staff, in addition then to logistics-related costs. A reasonable estimate would probably be €100 per movement. Secondly, there is a significant learning curve to ensure declarations lodged with customs are correct, to ensure compliance, minimise risk of delays and avoid additional charges. This can be achieved but will involve investing time and effort in upskilling. At the same time, we do need to take on board that this is completely achievable, and many Irish companies engage in this non-EU trade without difficulty every day. Thirdly, and for the agri-food industry in particular, it is critical that delays at borders are minimised and every simplification allowed by the Customs Code is provided to Irish business to enable them to streamline their customs processes. Fourthly, there are cash flow considerations to build into any future business model. And finally, depending on whether a free trade agreement is concluded or not, there may be customs tariffs. These tariffs average 5%, however they can range from 0% to 20% depending on the industry. In addition, for companies trading in agricultural and food products, there are additional agricultural levies to consider. In this context, therefore, it is critical that Irish businesses are educated to the duty savings opportunities provided for in the Customs Code, which will reduce duty costs on, for example, goods for import and re-export. In BDO, we've carried out an optimism index where we found that Brexit is having an impact on business confidence, with first quarter projections at their weakest since 2013. Of particular concern, however, is that we found that only 4% of Irish companies have sought external advice and support on the implications of Brexit, and just 1 in 20 firms have a plan in place to deal with the potential customs border with the North following the Brexit vote. We are therefore advising our clients that it is critical at this point to start the preparatory work in getting ready for Brexit. This is to ensure that companies have the information available to them to complete their declarations, that they have built in the additional costs and potential delays at any border crossing, and they have accounted for the potential risk of tariffs. In addition, a particular focus is on ensuring companies are established to move their goods as seamlessly as possible across the Northern Ireland border. Again, the only way to achieve this will be by preparing and developing their customs capabilities to ensure they can take advantage of any simplifications revenue introduce, as well as ensuring they qualify for all duty savings procedures provided for by customs. It is clear from our work that Brexit presents challenges and opportunities for companies operating in Ireland. But our key message is that planning is key in order that our clients continue to be able to access the lucrative UK market.
Thank you very much, Ms Lynch. Senator Conway Welsh.
Sorry.